Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another live segment. Today is sponsored by the company Dufrane. They actually sent me in a watch, so we're going to do an unboxing as I normally like to do. Because it's because of you guys that I'm able to do these unboxings. It's why these brands are reaching out and doing relationships with me. So I thought I'd give back to you guys by not only doing deep dive reviews, but also doing unboxings of the watches that I get and anything else that's sent into the channel, one of which is a Vario bun strap that we're actually doing a deep dive review for as well. I feel like the bun strap is a little underrated when it comes to watch straps, right? It's one of the things that's not talked about so often. And Ivan actually reached out to me to do a deep dive review of a bundle of his bun straps. And I was completely interested in doing that. So that's exactly what I have on wrist. Now I have the more conventional style bun strap on this Boltony, which I feel that when it comes to bun straps and it comes to that extra material being there, you're better off getting a larger diameter of watch when you're doing so. This way it fills that space up a little bit more on that backsplash, if you will, on the bun strap itself. And then I'm actually double wristing. Now, I don't normally double wrist bun straps. Would I? Probably. I'm a little crazy. But I actually have a double wrist of another bun strap from Vario, and that is more of a slimmer design. It works well with more modern watches. So as you guys can see, I have my Pobia on here. This is a vintage champagne dial. Actually, let me take it off wrist so you guys can get a better view of it. I do apologize. Hang on one second. Good morning, Oscar. So this is the Pobia vintage watch that I got. My wife got me this after Wind Up 2023, I believe. Yeah, 2023. There was a champagne dial vintage watch that I liked there, and it was out of the range. So she found me a nice vintage watch so like that I can get that kind of effect. But when it comes to bun straps, this more of a sleeker design. It's smaller material than it is for the more conventional style. That's one of the takeaways for bun straps that I was excited to give to you guys. It gives a better look to a smaller watch, and I think it pairs famously with a watch of this caliber. And then of course, this is not going to be super water resistant. It being a vintage watch, we're probably talking about 30 meters, if that. So this also provides some protection from your sweat even engaging with the back of the case and getting inside there. So when it comes to bun straps, I really love this, and I discovered it from doing the collaboration with Vario. And I'm going to do a deep dive review that's going to explain the history, the pros, the cons, and my experiences with bun straps. So stay tuned for that coming up. But today is all about Dufrane. And so I met the owner of Dufrane from a watch show in Philly, right? Philly produced a watch show for the first time, and they had a couple brands there. Mark Time was there. Maryland was there, and Dufrane was there. There was a couple of other people too. It was very intimate though, but I got to spend some time with a gentleman named Stephen Lee. He's the owner of Dufrane, and I actually reached out to him recently to see if he would be interested in doing a collaboration, a little bit of back and forth through email. We spoke over the phone, and he was happy to send me out one of his newest watches, which is the Mark II Travis, which is the upgrade, if you will. There are some changes from it, but we're going to talk about that, and we're actually going to do the unboxing for it because I haven't even opened this up. So this is a true unboxing, so it's going to be an interesting live if there's no watch inside of it, but I hope that there is. And we're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to go over some of the things about Dufrane, and that's the reason what inspires me the most to create content, right? I'm very infatuated with micro brands, independent brands, all of the things that they have to offer. They offer such a range where they cover a lot of bases when it comes to what you want out of a watch. So everywhere from your Swiss-made movements, some of the high refinement, all the way up to the more affordable size where you'll get still well-finished watch cases, and maybe you'll get an NH movement and everything else of the like. Good morning, everybody in chat. Thank you for coming in. We are going to talk about Dufrane, and I'm going to do unboxing for that. Oscar, I said good morning to you. What is that? Lily, I can't say your name. I do apologize, but you said wow. Good morning to you. And Cole, good morning. So the owner is called Stephen Lee from Dufrane. Now, in terms of Dufrane, it's a brand that's been around for 9 years. He just made 9 years up until this point. The brand was born out of his infatuation with watches, of course. And then, of course, he has a lot of love for Austin, Texas, where the brand is located. And he's a one-man army. When I spoke to him, he's not interested in making a million watches a year. He's interested in staying very small and very intimate. He actually is hands-on with all of the watches. He assembles them. He's doing the regulations. He's doing the service calls. He's doing the emails, and he's taking out the trash at the end of the night. So a one-man army, there's something very romantic about that. I do like to experience and have relationships with some of the bigger brands and also some of the one-man armies, if you will. And the watches that he has are models that are named after Austin, Texas landmarks or historical figures. Their stories are as unique as the timepieces that he puts together. He also designs them, of course. He's doing everything at the end of the day. And he was an absolute gentleman. See, here's the deal. So far, I could say, every brand owner and their team, if they have one, I've had nothing but a good experience with when it comes to independent brands or micro brand watches in that space. And that's an important factor, right? Them being personable, them reaching out, them taking efforts to connect with us as a community. Because at the end of the day, they don't have the ADs. So it's very important to build a relationship, right, with us outside of their websites and everything else. So also doing collaborations like this is also nice because you guys can choose whom you trust the most or whom you relate to the most to do reviews and get a deeper dive into their watches if you're not able to make the shows. Hi, ho, Silver Lone Ranger's in the building. Good morning, brother. How are you? We're doing an unboxing today. So some more things about Dufrane before we get to the watch, and we will be doing the unboxing soon. I just want to cover some of the bases. I thought that talking about the brand is very important, and giving them that exposure from this platform is also reporting the news, if you will. Again, he designs the watches. He does all the assembly. He does the testing, warranty work. If you have a warranty issue, if you have any questions, you can reach out to him. He has his contact on his website. We're going to talk about another contact that we can reach him at this point as well. And he takes full responsibility to his watches and loves to connect with the community. One of the things that he understands is that he can't control whether or not you like the language design of his watches, but however, you know, having that conversation and finding out what the inspirations are and or any technical questions, he wants to be very hands-on and he wants to build a one-on-one relationship with everybody. In fact, when I gave him a phone call not too long ago and he was on the phone with one of his customers and he was making sure to give them that individual time before he spoke with me. So that's extremely important. And that's exactly what he said to me. I quote, "It's extremely important. Part of the brand has the customer experience. He can't influence what happens if you do or don't like the designs. But one thing is absolutely in his control is that service that he wants to provide to his customers and everything else. And he wants to connect with you guys through emails, phone calls, and everything of the like. So really great guy. We're going to take a look at the watch very soon here. And there are some differences. So the Travis Mark II that we're taking a look at here, and it was already produced, right? He had his Travis 1s. There are differences from the watch that he produced before coming to this watch that we're presenting here today. And some of the differences is the date window that has a color matched date wheel, right? So that's something that us enthusiasts are very particular about, right? As you become a watch wizard, something that the muggles wouldn't understand is something like that, right? Matching that date wheel to the color. Now, that only is important if it's done correctly. That date wheel aperture or that date number, if you will, still has to be legible. That's very important. So it's not enough to just match it. We got to make sure that that is still legible, if you will. Freshly designed. So he's got a new fresh design on the chapter ring. It comes with a 5-link SEL bracelet, solid end link, solid end link bracelet. More Swiss-made parts, Super Luminova on the dial, the bezel insert, and he's also including another strap, a nylon strap that's actually seatbelt material. That's another thing that is also a green flag for me, not a red flag. That's another thing that's super nerdy, right? I've had a lot of straps that were nylon, but I feel like the seatbelt material is important because that's the most comfortable when it comes to it. Even if it's a, let's say, a NATO style strap, right? That seatbelt material is going to be the most comfortable on wrist. I've had that experience back and forth. So Very high quality strap that's going to come with it. The watch is still rated for 200 meters of water resistance. He is including more refinement in the polishing and chamfers to the case with added detail in that. And we're going to take a look at that. So without further ado, let's unbox it, right? And just so you guys can see, I marked off all the, the home address and everything else, but all I did was cut open the box. I haven't even unpacked this. This is the first time me actually taking everything out, and I want to share that with you guys. So we have a card here that's handwritten. He thanks me so much for reaching out to him. He hopes that I enjoy the time with the watch, and he looks forward to the review and the feedback. And that's one thing that he made sure to mention, right? He loaned this watch to me. The watch is getting sent back out to him once I'm done, and he believes more so in that philosophy because he has more interest in an unbiased opinion, right? He really wants me to be able to have the freedom to talk about the watch as much as I can. I would do that regardless if the watch was provided to the channel or not, like to keep, because at the end of the day, I feel like that is more value than just saying something nice in hopes of me getting another watch. Now, the packaging that I'm already seeing here is something that I'm familiar with. This is recycled paper, okay? So we are seeing something here that is eco-friendly. I've seen this before with what watch was it before that I did it? There was a watch very early on. It eludes me now. But let's take off that paper. So we have recycled paper in here. We have, of course, our cloth. And then this is what we have for the packaging for the watch itself. Now, this is exactly how you're going to receive the watch. He's mimicking it purposely so you guys can get the feel of how it would be if you were buying a watch from Dufrane. And we have a 2-year international warranty card here. Okay, some of the technical stuff in the back. So warranty card, if you will, little package here to even protect the leather pouch that we have here. Very nice pouch, if I have to say so myself. This is something a little bit different, a little button kind of aspect to it. So very nice, very refined. I like to sell the packaging. So let's take this out. And if you guys have any questions as we go along, we are going to run through the specifications as we take this out. So we do have this strap here. Very, very comfortable to the feel, to the touch. We have the attachments here, which is also going to be a quick release. Again, something else that's very small, but in my opinion, very important. I like to have quick release on myself. I'm getting a little bougie now, even when it comes to stainless steel bracelets. I love the quick release. I love the on-the-fly diver extension, because I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'm starting to appreciate bracelets a lot more and wear them even in the summertime. So when we have that thermal expansion of the wrist, we're able to adjust that. So we'll take a look at the clasp that we have here on bracelet. And here is the watch from Dufrane. This is the Mark II 40 acres version for the colorway that we have here. Bright orange. Now I chose this, I had the pick of the lot. I could have even chosen to take all 3 watches, but that gives me anxiety for when I send the watch back, if it makes it or not. So I said, dude, just send me the one watch. It provides me more time to actually spend time with just a single watch and get an understanding. And of course, I'll include the other colorways to the review. But this is the one that I wanted. And it's that bright color, it gives you that summer type of vibe. Let's take that plastic off the front so you guys get a clear shot of it. Of course, we'll flip the camera around so you can get an even closer look. And here we are. This is the Dufrane Mark II 40 acres. Beautiful, beautiful colorway. Spring, summer kind of type of vibe on here. Very, very nice. So this is a 39 millimeter case, 47 lug to lug, 12 millimeters thin in the height and the thickness. This is a diver style, of course. 316L stainless steel, 200 meters of water resistance. He's even included the size of the crown in the email to me. That's something that is lost on some people. I think that crown dimension is important because I have experienced watches where the crown is too small. And if I have to take a shot in the dark, I want to say anything 5 millimeters or short in the width of the crown itself changes things for me for the size of my fingers and the engagement for that keyless work function. So I know it's a little nerdy, but again, I love the fact that he included that. Of course, in the review, I do measure that out for you guys. Now, I don't measure the actual height of the crown itself. I could include a measurement from crown to the case side here, but one of the more important things is the crown width and the engagement for it. So just wanted to let you guys know that. Now, that is a screw down crown. Of course, it's engraved, as we can see here. And the movement that we're getting in here is a Sellita SW 200-1, right? So we're getting a Swiss-made movement inside of it. That -1 is important when it comes to Sellita because the SW200 used to have issues with the date wheel. The actual gears were malfunctioning on that. But the -1 indicates the newer version of the Sellita that doesn't have that problem. And you're probably not going to come across the older movement at this point. I just thought I'd include that for informational purposes. And this is actually going to be regulated from plus or minus 4 seconds a day. And Stephen Lee, the owner himself, is regulating the watches. Now, it is an elaborate type of movement where it's the tier, right? The SW200 comes in 4 different tiers. It's the standard, the elaborate, then you have the premium, and then you have the cost, right? So the elaborate is already a higher tier, but he's taking the extra step to refine it to plus or minus 4 seconds a day on that Sellita SW200-1. Now, he's regulating that from one position. That's another thing that's important to understand when you're talking about companies that are regulating the movements in general. It does matter how many positions if you're really trying to hone in and you really want something that's going to be super refined. If you see somebody who's saying that they're regulating their movement and you care so much about the nerdy aspects to a movement itself, I would implore you guys to ask how many positions that it's being regulated. Now, for me in particular, I don't get so caught up on that. I don't expect my watch to be running at plus or minus 1 second a day in 5 positions, right? Like that's not really something for me that's crazy. And I know that that also goes into the cost of watches, right? When people are regulating movements, it actually matters, and there is a cost to that. Of course, he's doing it himself, so he's keeping that overhead very low. But it's nice that he's taking the extra step because I believe that with the elaborate version, that tier, if you will, right, the standard, and then the next level is plus or minus 7 seconds with a tolerance of 20 seconds a day. So he makes sure to do at least plus or minus 4 seconds a day. Now, I've had a conversation with him, and he does do the regulation in one position, and he oftentimes gets that regulation even tighter than the 4 seconds. Sometimes he gets it around 2. It's not guaranteed, which is why it's stated as plus or minus 4 seconds. But it's nice that he's taking the time to even regulate that movement even further. Fair enough? So that's why I wanted to go down. Now the bracelet on this, again, it's a 5-link bracelet. It has a 20 to 18 millimeter taper down to the clasp, which I didn't even open yet. So let's take a look at the clasp. Let's flip things around again. So the clasp, of course, is milled. That's something we expect to this caliber. Are we getting an adjustment here? I believe we are, yes. It says push, so we are getting an extension there. There we go. So it's one of those click-in extensions. So to release it, you have to press the button, right, which gives you more slack. And then to tighten it up, you're just pushing it in and it kind of finds its place. Now, one of the things that I was a little worried about, not worried, but concerned, was that clicking in on its own. I haven't had any watches outside of the tolerance where it does it on its own, so that's not really to worry about. But it's nice that we're getting that on-the-fly adjustment. Of course, we're getting quick release here at the lugs, so that's very nice for a quick strap change. And that's something that I like to do, and that's something that is important to me in my watches because I could do things like this. Now, I'm a little biased when I say that because I do content, of course, and I have to do that a lot. 2 things you have to do a lot as a content creator for watches. You have to remove the bracelet a lot, at least for me, because I like to do one of these in my review videos. But then you also have to put it on the 1010. So that interaction with the crown is very important to me. And I know it's probably still important to you as well, because at the end of the day, these things are mechanical, right? So they are going to be wound up. They're going to be adjusted quite often if you're rotating a few watches. And the way I have to do this a lot, I have to go to the 1010. So, and that can get a little annoying when you're trying to shoot and then you put it in. And of course you want to get the shot with the second hand running. So the date wheel is matching on here. We have the primary date having that orange colorway being extended to the bezel as well, which is very, very nice. The sapphire crystal that we're getting on here has 5 times AR applied coating on it, okay? So I'm expecting great things when it comes to the reflection. You guys can kind of get a gist of that just by me holding it like this and having that kind of like light hit it. It's very, very clear. It stays very clear, so that's very nice. And I love that the date wheel aperture, the date wheel complication itself matches the dial. And, you know, I'm gonna bring it up to me here, and it's still very legible. Let me go to double-digit numbers just to make sure that that's still the case. It's extremely legible. So the date wheel itself matches the dial, and it doesn't interfere with the legibility of the actual numbers itself. So that's nice to see, of course. Um, we are getting X1 grade superluminova. Now that I can't show you right now, but that is also something, another feature on this watch as well. The hands are nice. Now on the other ones, I believe it's rhodium um, um, kind of material for the hands. On here, it's more of just like that white kind of look, but it makes more sense to have that on here for legibility against that bright orange kind of look. Wristful Ignorance is in the building. What's up, brother, man? What else could we say here? And I think that's it on my notes as far as the specifications go, but it's at a very nice size. Again, the case is at a 39. We have a lug to lug of 47, and we're talking about 12 millimeters in height. And as far as divers go, as far as divers are concerned, that's pretty nice. And we have horizontal brushing. We have some chamfered edges here that are polished, with also some brushing on the top of the lugs, brushing in between the lugs. That's something that I mentioned, of course, as a watch reviewer, but you know, that's not something that we're going to worry about too much. And then let's do a bezel test, yeah? Let's see the tolerance for the bezel. Let's hear the click for the bezel and everything else of the like. Yes, very nice. Very nice. Very nice audible click. Very good tolerance on it. In fact, I think it's one of the better tolerances. It's just right. It's not too loose when I'm doing the turn. And of course, it lines up good at the 12 o'clock. Kind of a minimalistic bezel, if you will. We're used to, I think, more markings. And I think that that's a design choice where he wants to keep things more minimal, only the actual chapter ring, if you will, for the minute markers and the indexes and everything else. So that is a nice kind of look, and I kind of feel like it's a desk diver, yeah? Like more of a laid back approach to, you know, a diver, if you will. Screw down crown, of course. You're still getting that 200 meters, even though it's only 12 millimeters in thickness. So my first impressions, it's very nice, right? And it's either gonna hit you or it's not. The first thing that we see when we look at watches is the design as a whole. And then when we get closer to it and we look for different things and some of the things that I mentioned, of course, that's what we're gonna be interested for the specifications. Now, I'm trying to see if we have some applied things here. No, the chapter ring that I was showing you guys before has more painted on things on it, but I think that the actual company name and everything else is well balanced at the 12. The text have been reduced. On the text itself, it's saying Travis, automatic, and 656 feet instead of saying the 200 meters, right? So that was something that was also chosen. Now let's take a look at the case back. And the plastic is still on here, so let's remove that bad boy. There's a little red strip here that indicates where to remove it. So let's do that and take a look at the case back itself. Obviously, we can already see some engraving here. So we have a star engraving on the back of the case. It's not one of the ones that are super deep engraved, but it's still nicely done. Of course, I'll give you guys some close-ups. We have our typical brushing in the back, and then it looks like some polishing and brushing for the star just to get some emphasis. We have specification text along the side of it, but most of which is primarily brushed. Now, going back to the bracelet, that is also something that I look for as well, yeah? So what's important for a bracelet on the clasp, at least, push deploy button. I told you guys that how it extends to get that extra. But on the actual clasp itself, it's done the right way. It's brushed in the center, polished on the side. So it still gives you that kind of fancy design while staying functional, if you will, because that's obviously the highest point of contact that you're gonna have on your wrist. Another important thing that I forgot to mention, this has 800 Vickers of coating on it. So it's actually gonna have on the bracelet, on the case itself, it's gonna have more tolerances to scratches as well. So you have kind of the two working together where the actual clasp itself is protected by that coating, having extra Vickers on it, of course. And then also it's brushed where it needs to be brushed. And then the bracelet is, I believe we have a combination, or is it all brushed? Hard to tell. It looks like it's all brushed, so he's leaning more towards in that toolish type of look for his watch, right? So very, very nice, solid end links, quick release on there. First impressions, it makes sense, and it's done to a specification that an enthusiast will love. Now I'm spotting something that I want to also show you guys as well. This is very important. You see this here where you have two holes on that lug? That's for a reason. I've seen this with Venezianico before, so I know what it's for. When you swap out the bracelet receives into the lugs further out, right? Because it has more material to go up to the flush casing, right? So it goes actually even more flushed when it's pushed all the way in, right? Now, when you swap that out to, let's say, a strap, which he also provided, let me show that to you guys. The strap has a more shallow connection, right? So he drilled two holes in there. So when you put the strap on, this also becomes flush with the case. So it's little things like that that matter, and what we receive on watch enthusiast focused watches, yeah? It's something that we've talked about with that Jack Mason release, them being transitioning to more of a fashion brand to targeting enthusiasts. And therefore, you have to fit that caliber and you have to give those little nerdy specifications that people look for. And that's exactly what we're getting here on this watch. And let me put on the bracelet so you guys can see. Let me catch up on chat. I'm sorry. What watch is this? This is a Dufrane Travis Mark II. 40 acres is the colorway that is produced here. And he has two other colorways that I will mention. Matter of fact, I do have, I believe the website is up. Let's see here. Yes, so he has two other colorways. This is the 40 acres, as I mentioned. He has a brown colorway dial. That is the saddle brown. After this live, in the description, I'll leave a link to his website so you guys can check it out for yourself. But if you want to look it up while you're listening to me rant on, it's DufraneWatches.com. He has a saddle brown colorway, which is kind of like a burgundy brownish kind of thing. It has a nice focal point to the second hand with that yellow colorway to it. And then he has a slate gray colorway for if you want something that's toned down, or if you want just the opposite, if you want something that has a spring summer vibe. That's one of the things that I was interested to add to my collection, and I decided to go with San Martin for that, right? That SN118G. It has that orange colorway as well. That has very much a summertime vibe. Patek Philippe is in the building. What's up, brother, man? Now, let me see if I can get this strap engaged here so I could show you guys the watch on strap. And if you guys have any questions while I do this, please put it in chat. We're talking about the Dufrane newer release of the Travis Mark II. Not replacing, I don't think this is replacing the original Travis edition, but I think that this is offering a little bit more refinement. It's offering different colorways and everything else of the like. So you are going to have options here. So I can't get this right now, but I'll show you guys the strap that comes with it. So you are getting an additional strap with the watch as well. So it's very, very nice, very soft. It has the quick release. And if I didn't have sausage fingers, I could probably do it on the live. So yeah, man, those are the two colors. I'm really excited about this collaboration. Again, I met Stephen Lee at the Philly show, and we had a great conversation. He has fantastic watches. He's a one-man army, which is a little different than what we're used to if you're used to the bigger names and them having teams and everything else. But again, I feel that gives kind of like a romantic feel to the watches itself, knowing that if you are a fan of the design, you know that he put it together. And if you want to reach out to him, he's very open to being in full communication with you. He wants you to reach out to him. He's a little bit more reserved, I'll be honest with you guys. He doesn't want to get in your face and be really loud and be thirsty, if you will, but he wants you to come to him and he wants to open that dialogue and he wants to have a connection with people. And I love that. I think that that's very romantic when it comes to choosing a watch company. Now, after having a little bit of a conversation with him, I did mention Watch Crunch to him. I know a lot of you guys have accounts on there. So he actually made an account on Watch Crunch. He's still getting his feet wet with it, functionality and everything else, but he's Dufrane Watches, one word. And then his name on there is Steven. So if you guys are interested, to hit him up. If you have any technical questions, if you want to connect with him, like I mentioned, he's more than happy to do that. He made a profile just to see what it's all about. I kind of gave him the synopsis of how that community is. And I mentioned to him that the community is a family. A lot of you guys here are on Watch Crunch or came over from that platform supporting me there first. And then when I decided to do this, you guys showed your love and support. So I explained to him, I said, listen, the people on there, first and foremost, they're all enthusiasts. They're all people that like watches. They all post their watches, and I've seen your watches on there. In fact, there's actually a hashtag for Dufrane specifically. So I thought it was a great idea to introduce him to the platform, and I let him know. I said, listen, it's not somewhere where you're going to advertise, and it's not like an advertisement type of thing. Don't think like Instagram where you're just posting to sell, but you're posting to connect. And because that was part of what he was heavily interested in, I told him that that would be a great place to start. So I'm excited to do a deep dive review on this watch. Today, I just did the release of the Notice X Watch Crunch collaboration where Max was graciously, he's the co-founder of Watch Crunch, by the way. He graciously sent me that watch over for me to do a deep dive review. I've been an avid supporter of the platform, and therefore he was kind enough to give me that watch as a gift. So if you guys haven't checked it out, watch that review that I just released. Next week, we're going to be releasing the deep dive review of the Jack Mason Pursuit. Awesome watch. They're celebrating 10 years, and they're doing it in a way where they're looking back at a watch that they originally started with, a Pilot. And I have kind of mixed feelings about that, or at least I have standards, yeah? Now, it's not enough for a watch company to keep doing revisions of a watch. And that's actually what we see here with this Mark II, right? Because he had the Travis before that. So I like when it's done tastefully. I like when there's enough change in the watch for it to make sense. And I think for Jack Mason, it made a hell of a lot of sense to appreciate their anniversary by going back to the archives and really showcasing the differences of the company and the brand altogether in what they're able to produce. So if you take from where they started, which by the way, Jack Mason started with manufacturing their own cases and their own parts and everything else of the like. So, you know, it's not like they started with on-the-shelf parts and stuff like that. They started off pretty strong, but really showing the refinement in the details and the things that they can offer. Of course, the most call-out thing is the fact that the watch was actually Swiss at this point, instead of, I think, being either a quartz or a Miyota movement. They're graduating and they're messing with Le Joux Perret, 101, I believe the movement was. And I have a review video coming out for that as well. So we're going to be working on the deep dive review for this Dufrane watch. Super excited for that kind of relationship. And we'll see what we come up with. And that is pretty much what I had in store for you guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know now. Otherwise, your boy is going to sign off and go get some breakfast. Let me make sure I covered everything that I wanted to cover on this watch. I told you guys that it is, so, one thing I didn't mention was the sapphire and an aluminum bezel. Okay, so 120 click, unidirectional. I told you guys that the tolerance was very good for that watch, just experiencing it for it now. I like the X Grade 1. We saw the X Grade 2 Super Luminova in that Jack Mason Pursuit, which has been an upgrade for it, but it's still a fantastic X1 grade Super Luminova as well. I'm gonna have, of course, a shot of that lume for you guys to really see what it is and how it's showcased. Another thing I'm interested to know is on the bracelet, it looks like we have screwed in links, I believe. Yeah, this looks like screwed in links. I'm curious to see the articulation. I'm curious to see the tolerances within the screwed in links itself. You know, some of the more important and nerdy stuff. You know, when it comes to the tolerance in the screws, yeah, I do love when it's buttery smooth. Like when I had the Erebus, that was like ridiculously on point for the tolerances in the screw. It came in and it came out butter smooth. If there's some resistance, and I'm not talking about a situation where that screw gets completely stuck and then you start stripping the top of the screw head and then you have an issue, but if it's a little off, you're not really revisiting that once you do the adjustment. So I feel like that could get a pass on it and everything else. And what's more important is having that diver's extension and having that quick release, of course, on the bracelet itself. And then, of course, like I said, I mentioned that having that brushed aspect on here, like my Venetianico that was sent over to me, that was polished in the center. It made sense in a design aspect, but it's going to get scratched up like crazy. Now, that doesn't bother me as much as it would maybe somebody else, but I feel like if they flip things around, right, especially on the Venetianico, it had a bump out. So it's going to, of course, cause that to have even more contact than it really would. But if they flip things around and did a brushed aspect on the clasp and then did a polishing on the side, you still get that polishing aspect. And that's something that we see that's kind of popular with that kind of design. And that's what we're getting here for this Dufrane push deployment, milled, of course, clasp with the on the fly. So really excited about that. Really happy that he went to go that route. And then, of course, again, he has that DLC coating of 800 Vickers just to give you that added protection for scratches on the case. Of course, the case back, one of the things that kind of, it bothers me a little bit when there's too much polishing on the case back. Like this Boltony is super polished. Whatever, you know, if you get scratches on it, it is what it is. But again, that's much like the clasp. When you have a bracelet, that's going to interact with the back of the case a lot. So I feel like the back of the case should be brushed, especially if you're going with a toolish kind of design. The Boltony is a vintage inspired from Vacheron Constantin. So I get that the polishing wanted to be there more for that leaning into the language design. But on the Dufrane Mark II, we're getting a lot of brushing. A lot of brushing on the actual bracelet itself. We're getting that extra coating. So there's a lot to it that has to speak to the cost, which I didn't cover yet. So I'm glad I'm going on with that. Right now on the website, we're looking at 805 for the Swiss-made movement, the Luminova X1, the quick release, the diver extension, the extra bracelet. Obviously, there wasn't a hell of a lot of money spent on the packaging, which is also, it could be an indicator for a plus, right? This is recyclable paper, but he's still giving you something that's functional. Because watch boxes, they get thrown out, right? So if you put a lot of money into a watch box, it is still brand presentation, so I get it. However, I'd rather you play with that money where you can put it more into the watch and possibly give us more value, and or I want the company to make more money, because I want the company to stay in business and I want them to be able to graduate to an even more interesting design. So this is the packaging that we're getting for it. Again, it makes sense. There was actually a watch divider in here as well that I think, oh, here it is. Got a small watch divider in here as well. That's just to protect the bracelet from the back of the case itself and keep everything snug as a bug, if you will. Megazoid, what is going on? Megazoid, I appreciate you, bro. You are always on your P's and Q's. And a lot of you guys that are in here, you guys are always supporting me off of the drop of a hat. So I really do appreciate it. So 805 USD right now on the website for this Travis Mark II. I'm going to do a deep dive into it to see exactly how everything really is in finer detail. Maybe we can get some comparisons to that and the actual first Travis that he came out with. I listed off a couple of things. If you missed that, you can go back to see what those differences were. But again, we're getting, as far as value goes, we have the extra Vickers, we have the quick release, we have the diver extension, we have obviously a solid, I think this is a solid female end link. Yeah, solid female end link. Swiss movement, of course, SW200. That's a movement that we see a lot. It's more on the affordable range when you start going to like the crazier side of movements. But it is that kind of class 2, if you will, of that movement, it being a Labouré. But then he's also regulating the movement, again, plus or minus 4 seconds. But he often gets it a little bit tighter than that. And he has had enough skin in the game, or at least enough time in the game to get feedback to people who have purchased his watches later on, and 2 or 3, 4 years down the road, they tell him that the watch is still running at an excellent rate and it doesn't need any adjustments. So he is putting some time and effort into regulating it in that one position again, because again, it also matters when you guys see regulated movement by so-and-so. If you're really nerdy about that, you're going to want to know how many positions. Now, for me, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're already taking the time to do it, that's close enough. I'm okay with a high tolerance. I don't want it to be plus or minus 3 minutes a day. But at the end of the day, you guys know I love the NH movement. That is known to have a higher tolerance, but oftentimes it is tighter than what is proclaimed to be acceptable out of factory. So I'm not so hell-bent on movements as I am to really learn and experience movements moving forward for my own knowledge. I'm getting that now with this Salida 200 Elaborate version, with it being regulated. I got it with the Jack Mason being Le Joux Paret. That was the first time I experienced that. So it is something to note. It is something to focus on. It is something that I'm always going to be somewhat interested in learning and growing, and then of course sharing that with you guys. But I'm never going to be the type of person that needs cost certified all the time and or a whole bunch of different positions and tolerances that I'm going to be mad about. But I can tell you that obviously as a watch reviewer, but I had this way before. Of course, I'm into modifying as well, but I always recommend you guys getting your own time graph. That could save you a lot of headaches down the road, and or just give you the feedback that you need as you purchase the watch, right? First and foremost, you're going to get that watch in the mail. A lot of things happen in the mail, guys. And I'm going to put this sucker on the time graph, and I'm expecting great things. Now, if there is a situation where a movement is completely out of whack, the first thing that we can't do is blame the companies. There's a lot of shipping and handling. You guys could probably YouTube some crazy videos of how they like to deliver packages. And these things are very fragile. And it's not until I was actually assembling watches that I really appreciated how fragile these parts are and can be. And therefore, we have to give some room for a company to help us with that, right? Because it's not necessarily their fault too if your movement comes completely out of whack or if the watch is damaged altogether. Maybe you have a hand that gets dislodged. That's also a popular thing that happens with mechanical watches or watches even in general. I've had that happen with quartz watches as well. Now, prior to me modifying, I would have been a little bit bent out of shape. Of course, you're expecting a new watch, so you're going to be rubbed the wrong way anyway. But what matters more is the fact that you can now contact the company, and that service, or rather that customer service at that point, is a smooth transition. And I haven't had years of experience. This is my first time doing a collaboration with Stephen Lee. But I would bet my bottom dollar that if you got a watch that was out of whack or there was something wrong with it, he's going to take care of that. And that's one of the things that we also need to put in our evaluation for value in the brand that we're investing our money in, okay? This is all my advice. You know, you guys can take it, you can leave it, you know, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. I respect how you feel, but, you know, again, modifying, putting things on the time grapher, getting more familiar with how things really, I've even taken a movement completely apart and put it back together again. So when it comes to actually knowing how fragile these parts are, I really do understand that. And I do implore you guys, if you have a sizable collection, if you're really into mechanical watches, they can really give you the feedback that you can get without having to let it run the full course for the day and try to time it that way. That's another thing you could do. If you don't have one or can't afford one, that's okay. You can always test it manually, if you will, that way. But when you get a watch in, it's good to be able to throw it up there. When you own a watch for a while, it's good to test it to see what the feedback on the beat error is and everything else of the like. So this question might be a noob question, but can you use the time grapher? No, so Oscar, I'm glad you asked that question, my friend. And I actually, when I first got the time grapher, I was very new to watches. I was already, as I mentioned, interested in doing modifications and building movements, or at least not building movements, but taking them apart and putting them together again. I was interested to see if I could do services on my own movements, yeah? It's a little bit more involved than I want to do, but to answer your question, I've put a quartz watch on a time grapher before because I thought the same thing. I said, you know, I don't know, maybe it can read a quartz watch. It can't. It's not designed for that. It's specifically designed for reading the tick and the tock, if you will, from an actual mechanical movement. So a quartz watch won't work on a time grapher. It's not designed for one, and everything else of the like. But the nice thing about quartz is that you shouldn't have to, right? The quartz watch should be running pretty close to factory until it dies, right? So that's one of the trade-offs, and that's probably why it isn't necessary. Of course, when we get into higher refinement and higher luxury quartz movements, that's not the case. When you get a higher class of quartz movements, let's say you're getting it from what's the Seiko one? Grand Seiko. If you're getting a quartz movement from Grand Seiko, and if it's not solar, but even if it is, and that movement itself will need a service call, and it could be serviced is the point, because A, it's going to be worth it, and there's going to be parts available, and it's going to give you probably a combination between mechanical and quartz at that point. Fair enough. Good question. Yes, it was. It was a very good question. Thank you, Oscar. I believe there is a way to measure quartz, not sure. Yeah, if there is another way, I'm not sure of it, and I don't think it's through the time grapher, so that's my thing. So guys, I appreciate you guys as always, man. I really wouldn't be able to do these things if it was not for your support. So if you're watching on this playback, I appreciate you as well. And everybody here on this live in the chat, you guys know, you guys are the family. And I really do appreciate your guys' support along the way. We're going to have some review videos, of course. I've got a nice little bankroll of actual content to come. So we're going to stay consistently with that one video a week. And then we have these lives for when I have things coming in. So that was Dufrane Mark II 40 acres edition. I talked to you guys about the bunch strap from Vario. He sent me a bundle of them. We're also going to do a deep dive review of that strap as well, looking at the history, pros, cons, everything else of the like. And yeah, man, so many more things to come and so many more opportunities because of your support. So I appreciate you guys for spending your most valuable asset, which is time. And I hopefully will see you in the next one. Later, guys. Have a